Yes, I cried at the end of Professor Layton 3. Got it, got it. Now let's talk about it. So we have the final game of Professor Layton's first trilogy, Professor Layton and the Unwound Future. And not only that, it's the game that managed to tear at a lot of people's tear ducts. Okay, maybe just Layton fans, but even then, I have met some people that weren't Layton fans that would end up either giving a sniffle or coming to my room in the middle of the night in tears after finishing the game for comfort. And yeah, chalk it up to my feminine weakness for feelings, but I'm in the majority of those affected. And it is rare for me to get blurry-eyed over a lot of things, so that can be considered an accomplishment of sorts. But is that the only reason to play Unwound Future? Obviously not. Some of the best stuff is in this game. Okay, in this story, a brilliant doctor named Stangun has claimed to have invented a time machine. But when the doctor manages to get the Prime Minister to test it out, a terrible accident occurs and the doctor and the minister are nowhere to be found afterwards. After some days go by, the professor and Luke receive a letter from someone claiming to be Luke from the future. And after a series of events, the duo does manage to find themselves 10 years into London's future. Not only that, they receive the aid of future Luke himself. And only with future Luke in the time machine can our heroes ever hope to find the minister and the doctor and save London's future. While that's going on, there seems to be a mysterious case of a deceased sweetheart of Layton's roaming the streets, which causes a lot of drama to be remembered that is related to the time machine itself. Okay, let's talk about what I really love about this game, the characters' connections to their environment. If anything, Layton and Luke at first would have little to no relation to the mysteries that they solve. In Curious Village, they just seem to come out of nowhere, and in Diabolical Box, a friend of theirs got ill, but the reasons being still had little to do with them personally. The fact that they decided to place this game in London, their home, isn't the only thing that makes them relevant to the situation. The characters themselves are a large part of the mystery. Layton's backstory almost takes up half of it, and it's a great, tragic backstory and allows a different view on Layton's character. This continues in the later games, and I'll get to what I mean by that when those come around. Luke having a future self interact with him seems to make the kid a little uneasy, and at times makes him think exactly how long his time with Layton is gonna be, and that eventually they'll have to part ways someday. In fact, it may be sooner than he thinks. Even Chelmy and Don Paulo are no strangers to the plot, and they're given a little development. As unpleasant and daft as they have a surprisingly good moral code and are a little more cooperative than they appear. And all the new characters this game introduces are just as endearing as the ones we've already gotten to know. Adding the concept of puzzle battles is a neat way to change up the gameplay a bit, and when I saw the color scheme and the production art, I was a little worried that they might do the same thing in what they've done in Curious Village, but they use them very well. A lot of that is due to the locations they have made for this world in the future. There is this great towering pagoda right in the middle of this huge Chinatown, and an extravagant casino, and steam-powered London streets, and a giant, mechanical fortress. I suppose that's as good a segue as any to talk about the few problems I have with this game. Without giving too much away, the ending involves a giant robot, and for some reason, that just seems really jarring to me. As weird as this universe is, you can gather that it's set somewhere maybe in the 60s or 70s of Europe. And I know this is fiction, and if you want to have robots, or even giant robots, that's fine, but this thing is gargantuan! I can kind of fathom them having the kind of technology to have a robot the size of a house, but where do they get the time and money for one that can crush a row of buildings with just one of its feet? But I can't really complain that much about it because it does lead to a pretty good climax, and that's not the main problem I have with the game. The main problem, once again, is the treatment of Flora's character. Yeah, she does get to travel with them and solve a few puzzles here and there, but they sadly don't work her into the narrative that well as much as the other characters. She has nothing to do with the mystery, she's just sort of there. And they tried to bring up her backstory from the other games, but again, it's really rushed and tossed to the side. Even the other characters forget about her sometimes, and I worry that it shows just how little the writers are interested in developing her. I have the same problem with Kairi from Kingdom Hearts. Yeah, she's a nice person and has a good backstory, but we're not given enough time in the game to see how she'll develop from it. How does she feel now that she's discovered she's a princess? How would she react to her having these special powers? Why do they keep finding ways to leave her out of the adventure? Wouldn't it have been a lot more interesting if she and Sora went together to find Riku? Wouldn't it have been neat to see her reactions to all these different worlds, or even see her develop from them and her powers? Okay, focus on one game. Regardless of that fact, it makes up for what they do decide to focus on. I forgot to mention a recurring theme in the Professor Layton universe that I think has been really developed here: the importance of balancing emotions with logic. Characters that prefer one side find themselves flipping to the other extreme, for better or for worse, and Layton provides himself as a middle ground or mediator because he is a good mixture of the two, but only because he himself is struggling to maintain that in order to help others. And given what he's gone through here and in other games, I don't think it's as easy for him as it sounds. It's because of these reasons that I felt like the Professor Layton games were really starting to get good, and I agree that this is probably one of the best so far. It has good setup, some good development, and a strong, bittersweet finish. If you're a Layton fan and you somehow haven't played this yet, or a video game fan in general, I strongly suggest you take the time to do so.